Hi, friend. Welcome to another episode of In the Unfolding of Becoming. I'm your host, Erica, and last week we had a beautiful conversation with our guest, Yulia, who took us through her unfolding as it relates to life recalibrating after divorce. If you haven't listened to that episode, I encourage you to do so, especially if you're someone who is navigating through an unfolding that carries a lot of heartbreak and grief. On today's episode, we're going to do things a little bit differently because today is episode 9. And I want us to sit with that for a second because that means we only have one episode left in season 1. Episode 10 is coming, and it's going to be a beautiful conversation with a guest who has walked his own profound transition from living entirely in his head to opening himself up to something much bigger than logic. I cannot wait for you to hear it. And then the season will be complete. Season 1 will come to its finale. But before we get there, I wanted to use this last solo episode, as I said, to do something I haven't done yet this season. I want to reflect. I want to look back at what we've covered, where we've been, and what has quietly been the thread running through all of it. And then I want to talk about something I've been living in real time, something I think a lot of you are living too. Today, we're talking about trust and faith, not the concept of it, not the inspirational quote version of it, the actual lived, embodied, sometimes challenging practice of it. The kind that gets tested when things don't go the way you planned. The kind that asks something of you even when you're tired. That kind. This season, we have covered a lot of ground together. We talked about surrender and what it actually means to release your grip on the outcome without releasing your commitment to the journey. Because surrender is not giving up. Surrender is a radical act of saying, I trust what's coming more than I trust my need to control it. That is hard. That requires something of you, and we sat in that together. We also talked about the architecture of choice, how every decision you make is either coming from a secure place or a fear-based place, and how radically different your life looks depending on which one is at the wheel. Because you can make the same choice, take the same job, end the same relationship, start the same project from two completely different internal positions. And the energy you bring to it shapes everything that follows. We talked about showing up for yourself, about staying in the room with yourself when the feelings get uncomfortable, without distraction, without any escape plan. When the uncertainty gets loud, when every part of you wants to exit, to numb, to skip ahead to the part where it doesn't hurt anymore. And we said, no, I'm staying, because the growth is in the staying. And through all of it, we've had guests who have brought their own lived experience into this space. People who are in their own unfolding, who haven't arrived yet either. Whether it be from transitioning from a daughter to a caretaker, or from a people pleaser to a more aligned, authentic self. And that has been one of the greatest gifts of this season, realizing that none of us are doing this alone. But here's what I've been noticing as I look back across all of these conversations, all of these themes. There is a thread that has been quietly present in every single one of them, and that thread is trust. Intentional choice requires trust and faith. Staying through discomfort requires it. Every theme we've touched this season has been asking the same underlying question. Do you trust the process enough to keep going when you can't see the outcome yet? And I realized I haven't said that out loud until now. So that, my friend, is what today is for. So what are trust and faith really? Because I think we use those words a lot without sitting inside of them. We say, trust the process. like it's a bumper sticker. We say have faith like it's easy. But in practice, in the middle of real life, when things aren't moving the way you hoped, when the timeline is longer than you planned, when you're surrounded by people who are further along than you feel, trust is not a feeling, it's a choice. And it's one you have to keep making. Trust is not what you feel after the evidence arrives. Trust and faith are what you choose before it does. Think about it. Most of us are waiting. We're waiting for the sign, the confirmation, the proof that we're on the right path. We want the outcome to show up first, and then we'll believe in it. But that's not trust or faith. That's just logic. That's pattern recognition. And logic alone will not carry you through a season of becoming. Trust is a thing that asks you to move before you can see the whole staircase, before you can see the whole picture, before you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Pick any cliche, it applies here. It's the thing that says, I don't have all the answers yet, I don't have all the confirmation yet, but I know this is mine and I'm going anyway. And here's something important that I want to name because I think it gets missed. Trust is not passive. It's not sitting back and waiting for things to fall into place. Trust is active. Trust is a decision to take inspired action even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. Even when the people around you don't fully understand it yet. Even when the timeline isn't matching the vision. There's a difference between faking it and embodying it. You can show up, adjust your thoughts, speak the affirmations, and all of that has value. But if underneath all of it there is no faith, no actual trust that what is unfolding is happening for you and not to you, then you are performing growth, not living it. And your nervous system knows the difference. Your body knows the difference. The people around you can feel the difference. Trust says, this is happening for me, even this, especially this. And I want to tell you 2 stories about what that has actually looked like in my own life this season, because I think the concept only lands when it has a face on it. A little while ago, I was in a car accident. I was sandwiched on the freeway, completely out of my control, completely not my fault. The kind of situation where you have no say in what's happening to you. Everyone was safe, nobody was hurt, but in the immediate aftermath, I had a choice about how I was going to hold it. And I made a decision in that moment. I declared, I don't know how, but this is happening for me, not to me. For me. I want to be honest with you. That declaration didn't come from certainty. I didn't have proof of that yet. I couldn't see how a freeway accident was going to be for me. But I chose that frame anyway. I planted the flag before the evidence showed up, and I chose to trust that declaration and to embody it. And then the evidence showed up. Things unfolded from that situation in ways I genuinely did not anticipate. Doors opened, connections were made, circumstances shifted in my favor in ways that aligned with things I had already been working toward. What looked like a disruption became a redirection. And I share that not to make it sound magical or easy, because the moment itself was jarring. But I bring it up to say that the posture I brought to it shaped what I was able to receive from it. If I had spent that time in resentment, in victimhood, in why is this happening to me, I would have been so closed off I might have missed everything that came through it. Trust opened the door, and then life walked through it. This is what happening for you, not to you, actually looks like in practice. It's not a denial of the hard thing. It's a decision about how you're going to stand inside of it. This is embodying trust. This is embodying faith. The second story is this podcast. I want to be transparent with you because that is what the space is built for. Building in the unfolding of becoming has been a slow burn. I say that not as a complaint. I say it because I think some of you need to hear someone say it out loud. Growing an audience takes time. Reaching people takes time. And in a world where we can see everyone else's numbers, everyone else's momentum, it's very easy to look at slow growth and interpret it as a sign that something is wrong. But here's what I also know. Every single time this podcast has reached someone, really reached them, their response has been profound. People have told me that this podcast has moved them, has inspired them, has helped them, has given them tools that have changed their day-to-day life, that it's made them cry, that it's made them laugh, that it's brought them joy, that it named something that they couldn't name themselves, that it arrived at exactly the right moment. That kind of feedback doesn't come from content that is just filling space. It comes from something that is real. So I have depth. I have resonance. What I am still building is reach, and I've had to make a choice over and over again about what that slow burn means. I've had to choose trust over doubt. I've had to choose to keep going when the metrics weren't reflecting the effort. I have had to remind myself that the timeline not matching the vision is not a sign to stop. It's an invitation to trust, to embody trust. And here's what I want you to know about how this podcast was born, because I think it is the clearest example I have of what embodied trust and faith actually looks like. In late January, I hosted a tea party with some of my closest friends. And I stood in the room and I told them, I'm going to create a podcast. I'm going to bring it into the world. I said it out loud. I declared it before it existed. Before I had the equipment figured out, before I had the format locked in, before any of it was real in the external world, it was already real to me. And I said so. I claimed it. I embodied it. I declared myself a podcaster. And so it was. And then less than a month later, through what I can only describe as inspired action, I built it. It was born. Not perfectly, not with everything figured out, but it was born because I stopped waiting for the conditions to be perfect and I moved anyway. The minute you start getting caught up in perfection and having all the details figured out is when you freeze up. But when you decide to move through inspired action imperfectly, that is trust in action. You declare the vision before the world confirms it. You take the step before the whole picture appears. You become the thing before you have the receipts to prove it. I didn't step into being someone who was thinking about starting a podcast. I stepped into being a podcaster fully, completely, without hedging, and nobody could tell me otherwise because I already knew. I already knew I was a podcaster. That is the difference between trying something on and embodying it. And that difference is everything. So I want to ask you, what is the thing for you? What is the goal, the vision, the version of yourself that you keep circling back to, that you keep dreaming about, that you haven't yet fully stepped into because you're waiting for the evidence first? Maybe it's a creative project that's been living in your notes app for 2 years. Maybe it's a business you keep saying you'll start when the timing is right. Maybe it's a relationship dynamic you want to shift, a boundary you want to hold, a quieter, more grounded version of yourself that you can feel waiting on the other side of all of this work. Whatever it is, I want to invite you to stop waiting for the proof before you commit to it. Declare it. in your mind, out loud to yourself, to a friend over dinner, in a room full of people who love you. Say it like it's already real, because the moment you say it and you embody it, it is. And then take the inspired action, not the perfect action, not the fully planned, every risk mitigated, I've thought of everything action. The inspired one. The one your gut has been pointing you toward. The one that scares you a little bit because it means you're actually doing it. That is trust. That is faith. That is what the messy middle looks like when you're moving through it with intention instead of just surviving it. And I promise you, the posture you bring to it shapes what you're able to receive from it. Friend, we have one episode left in season 1, and I am so genuinely grateful that you have been here for this. Episode 10 is coming, and it is a conversation that I know is going to land for a lot of you. Stay tuned because you don't want to miss it. And then season 2 will be coming. We're just getting started. If this podcast has been a source of inspiration for you and of value to you, share it with someone in your circle who is on their own unfolding, someone who you think this will be helpful to, someone who needs to hear that growth, slow growth, does not mean that they're doing something wrong during their unfolding. That unclear does not mean lost. That the timeline not matching the vision is not a sign to stop. It is an invitation to trust. I look forward to seeing you in the finale. But for now, friend, I look forward to continuing to meet you in your unfolding. Until the next one, take care.